Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. I am your host, Uncivil Law, a licensed attorney in both Virginia and Texas. It is April the 28th of 2023, and we're here with all the legal news going on in your world so you can be better legally informed. We begin with Disney versus Florida in the continuing battle between these two entities over control of the Reedy Creek district and also Disney's benefits there too. So Disney has for the past half century had control over the administrative district that is Disney World. So they basically were in practice the local government, and they had all the powers of local government basically to contour Disney World the way they liked. So they could do all the things like a local government would do, such as controlling the roads and trash service and lighting. And basically, they could issue their own permits and things like that. Well, as a result of political dust-ups, Florida wants to change that. Florida wants to say, okay, not so much with Disney being in control of the district. And of course, Disney is now fighting back, suing Florida, saying that this is unconstitutional. So the battle is underway, surprising no one, and we will see how it all pans out. But let's learn a little bit more about the story. Walt Disney has sued Florida and Ron DeSantis, alleging Republicans have waged a relentless campaign to weaponize governmental power against the company amid a protracted fight over a classroom bill. So this all began with the Stop Woke Act from Florida, which, depending on who you ask and how you read it, has a lot of different implications, but the idea at least being on the surface that we would prevent schools from teaching things relating to transgender and transgender ideology. Now, how far it went in those efforts and what it did in practice, reality, morally, ethically, gets into the weeds. But Florida wanted to stop teachers teaching about these issues, which to some degree, Florida definitely has the ability to do when it comes to K through 12 schools, because they are state schools. They belong to the state. And so the state has control, at least to some degree, about what they teach and don't teach in their own school system. So the First Amendment issues are somewhat modified because when it comes to, for example, the state of Florida telling teachers what they can and can't teach, the teachers are state employees, and therefore it is the government's First Amendment speech. Now, this gets a little bit more complicated in the educational setting, but not as complicated as it would be in the college educational setting, where there are more countervailing considerations. On K through 12, the default rule is that the states and school boards get more control over what they teach. So anyways, regardless of the law on the thing, there was the political controversy over the thing, right? So is the bill legal? One level. Is the bill moral? I suppose another level. And Disney had some objections to this. And then Florida's like, you can't do that because you are to some degree a state entity because of your ability to control this district, right? That gives them state-like power because of their control of the Reedy Creek district. And because they're a state entity to some degree, right? Disney's obviously a private entity to a large degree, but to some degree a state entity, there was this conflict between Florida and presumably, at least partially, itself. And so Florida wants to wrest control back because Florida wants the ability to control its governmental districts. And that's how all that sort of plays out. The federal lawsuit, of course, has alleged that DeSantis has orchestrated every step of a campaign to punish Disney that now threatens the business. So this is an idea of First Amendment retaliation. You are punishing us, Disney, for our protected First Amendment speech. You are doing things to us because of our private speech. And then, of course, things get muddied again because of the Reedy Creek district, right? This governmental district. And simply taking power away from Disney, is that the same thing? Right? That's the question, right? Reverting control of the district to the state. Is that the same thing as punishing Disney? Not at all clear. If Florida had passed special rules in a government-owned or controlled district that leveraged against Disney in a way that didn't treat them the same as other businesses, then you'd have an equal protection problem. But Florida trying to wrest control of this district back, is that the same thing as a First Amendment retaliation case? Unclear at best, because state gets the right to control the state apparatuses, right? So this is one of the differences, incidentally, between federal versus states and state versus city or state versus county, for example. When we're talking federal government versus state, we are talking about federalism, right? We have a federal constitution that sets up this relationship between the federal governments and the states. The federal government is sovereign. The states are sovereign. This much is not controversial. Where the respective sovereignties start and end and how they influence each other is where things get more interesting. But the federal government definitely doesn't have plenary control over the states, whatever can be said for their level of control. The states have sovereignty. So there are definitely things the federal government cannot do when it comes to the states. What those things are and where those boundary lines are is where things get fun. But when it comes to states versus municipalities or states versus counties, not so much with that idea, right? There's no corresponding concept of federalism. States are sovereign. Municipalities, cities are not sovereign. So when it comes to the balance for power, there is no balance. The states just get to be God and get to do whatever they want, pretty much without exception. The state government can create cities, abolish cities, create counties, abolish counties. They can overtake things. They can give power, right? This is a matter of state law. Now, some states, as a matter of their state constitutions, of course, have changed this as a matter of their state constitutions. But then again, that's a matter of their state constitutions, which the states can change. So the states still have power over themselves. The states are the one restricting themselves when it comes to the state constitution. So they can stop doing that. So that is where things get complicated in this domain. So Reedy Creek is a state entity. Whatever can be said of Disney, Reedy Creek is a state entity. And so the ability of the state to just do whatever the hell it wants, well, it's God. And then you get into the question of, okay, is that the same thing as punishing Disney? Is that the same thing as unfairly burning Disney vis-a-vis other people where it'd be an equal protection problem, right? Those kinds of things. So yeah, this is interesting to be sure, but we'll see how it continues to develop. It's fun. The move dramatically escalates the feud between DeSantis and Florida more properly, and of course Disney, which is among Florida's largest employers. The lawsuit was filed on the same day the District Board of Supervisors, which DeSantis had picked to take over control of Disney Orlando parks, and that's not really quite accurate, again, because the issue is the governmental aspects, so not quite the same thing as taking over control of the parks, I'd like to take note. But the same day they took power and moved on to a development deal that Disney struck to thwart its power. So the panel unanimously voted to declare void and unenforceable the deal. So this was something that Disney tried to do to give itself power, right at the last minute. While Disney still was in control of the Reedy Creek district, the governmental entity, which is distinct from Disney, to be sure, there is definitely a difference between Reedy Creek and Disney. They might have some sort of relation to each other, but they are different things. So at the last minute, one of the last things that Disney did while it still was in control of the governmental entity of Reedy Creek was attempt to basically give Disney, the private entity, all the power as a matter of practical reality, right? They basically created this contract whereby for, forever or until the until forever or until the rule against perpetuities kicked in, that Disney would have practical control over everything. And so the new board has obviously declared that void and unenforceable. So now you get into issues of contract, you get into issues of self-dealing, you get into issues of whether the contract is valid in the first place, which is typically a matter of state law. Contracts are state law. So can a state void a contract that it's in as a matter of its own state law, particularly with the whole self-dealing things? So lots of fun issues there. Disney has alleged the governmental action was patently retaliatory, patently anti-business, and patently unconstitutional. Yeah, maybe. Disney is asking the court to rule the board's legislative step was unlawful. In response, Disney, of course, let me try that again. In response, DeSantis has suggested the fight hinged on Disney's special tax and governance privileges, not political retaliation. There definitely is a difference between the two. The degree to which that is a difference in reality is something for the courts to tease out. DeSantis has said, we're unaware of any legal right a company has to operate its own government or maintain special privileges. Yeah, I mean, that much is true. Disney does not have the right to have its own government. So yeah. Disney has argued that this is a clear case of retaliation as a court is ever likely to see. As it comes to the government of Florida's motivations, I think, yes, there is definitely a First Amendment aspect to that. But then again, whose First Amendment? Because when it comes to the Reedy Creek district, well, that's the government's First Amendment. So, yeah. There's no room for disagreeing about what happened here. Disney expressed its opinion on state legislation, then was punished. Is this the same thing as punishment? Disney's lawyers noted until a year ago, DeSantis had no issue with the self-government structure, Reedy Creek, which had been in place for half a century. The Reedy Creek district, created in 1967, gave Disney effective regulatory control over all the public services and functions in the 25,000 acre area. They were the government. That's basically what that boils down to. Disney paid millions of dollars annually in taxes to fund those services, although basically it was paying taxes to itself at that point. So, yeah. In March, the newly picked board, now called the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District, which maybe not the best name for the thing, to be honest, but okay, said that Disney and line predecessors have stripped them of their powers, which, you can't do, probably. You can't fundamentally strip the government of its ability to do things when it comes to being the government, right? The government has a fundamental power sort of to do what it will. And if they give you some leave to do things, then they can take back that leave, because fundamentally the power is in the nature of the government. It's a fundamentally governmental power. So these contracts, to the extent they were trying to prevent Florida from regaining its own power, that seems like that's an invalid contract. But then you get into First Amendment retaliation issues and blah, 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 due process, all the rest of it, fun times. On Wednesday, the new board chair said the new body tried to work with Disney, but the company left them with a legal mess. That much is true. Disney picked fights with the board. That much is true. And he also said taxes will have to be hired. Taxes will have to go up to hire lawyers to deal with all this, which is also true. The board had also voted for a resolution to effectively ban Disney's Orlando parks from imposing future COVID restrictions, which, fair enough. Many states have done that when it comes to private entities, typically within state power. Nikki Haley, for her part, the former South Carolina governor, appeared to take a dig at the whole thing, saying that her home state of South Carolina will happily accept the 70,000 jobs. South Carolina says they're not woke, but not sanctimonious either. So Nikki Haley, for her part, seems to be backing Disney on this, or at least wants Disney's money. So that's a bit of a strange position, I suppose. But Nikki Haley has apparently taken the position that, they're happy to have Walt Disney World move, which seems unlikely. That'd be pretty massive to move Walt Disney World. It's a bit of a large physical structure. So But I guess Disney has money, so I suppose it's possible. But I wouldn't bank on it. But hey, why not make the offer? I guess. But a strange thing in the culture wars of our time. Thus, that brings us to the end of the discussion for the moment of the lawsuit of Florida versus Disney, a monumental lawsuit to be sure. It's very early in such things, but I'm giving a slight edge on the legal analysis to Florida on the whole thing. This is going to get complicated, very, very complicated. But I think in the end that Florida has the better argument. It's tight, but I think Florida has the better argument. Right? On the one hand, you have Florida taking action, which seems very directed at Disney because of protected First Amendment activity. So that's bad. But on the other hand, you have Disney controlling the governmental entity that was Reedy Creek, which they don't fundamentally have a right to do. And the Florida saying we want the right to control our own governmental district can't be fundamentally a target against Disney or anyone else. Because again, although state law might vary on this issue and state constitution law might vary, states are sort of God when it comes to their own municipalities and counties. They can create districts, create cities, create counties, abolish cities, abolish counties, abolish districts. They can control cities. They can do whatever they want. They have fundamental sovereign power. And whatever else can be said, cities, municipalities, districts have no sovereignty. So in the battle of sovereignty versus not sovereignty, it's not really hard to figure out who wins that. The sovereign wins. So on fundamental balance, I think that Florida will win most of this in the end. But it will certainly be a long, drawn-out fight, I'm sure. And for the moment, that brings us to the end of discussion of this story. All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law. As always, I hope you are here. Matthew asked about the contracts clause. The contracts clause is kind of dead. It would be hilarious if this somehow revives the contracts clause because it's been dead for a while. It's been dead since the end of the Lochner era, but hey, maybe this will be a way to bring it back, which will be hilarious because Justice Thomas wants to bring back the contracts clause from the dead. Right? There's a clause in the Constitution that says that contracts basically can't be interfered with. And it's basically been rendered dead letter by various actions of the courts, and Justice Thomas wants to bring it back. It'll be hilarious if this is the mechanism to do it all. But I think that I don't know, but it'll be fun. We'll see how it goes. Anyways, will I be doing commentary on the defense of the Stosh trial next week? Probably not, because I'm not, haven't been keeping up with it, and getting involved in this point would be a little complicated, obviously. First of all, thank you all for being here, and good morning. Legal Mindset has been doing a lot of videos. Yeah, we could have some discussion with him maybe on it as well. That'd be fun. We appreciate everyone who's here, as always. The pinned comment in the chat today is for a fundraiser to help Secret McSquirrel's family raise some money for funeral costs and other sort of last expenses. So I just want to put that on screen real fast. If you would like to support that, the Just Giving Fund to help support Secret McSquirrel's family raise some funds when it comes to some last minute expenses. If you would like to donate with respect to that, we would appreciate it. And again, I just want to say that I appreciate everyone who has been talking to me behind the scenes, my friends, my fellow members of LawTube, the people I've been having conversations with who have been talking about this issue. It has been helpful trying to deal with this. And I was watching an old stream of my own, as I sometimes do. I watch some of my own content sometimes because I like to go back I watch a lot of my own content because I like to look for things that I'm doing right or things that I'm doing wrong or ways I'm communicating, things people are saying in chat. Just seeing where things have gone better. It's nice to, watch what you're doing and also go back in time and see how you used to do things and see if you've improved, not improved things. So I was watching watching an old stream of mine and seeing Secret McSquirrel's comments in the chat, as she often was in the chats, and it was a little depressing, to be sure. So, I don't really have much more to say than I've already said about the thing. I am saddened, obviously, for the loss of Secret McSquirrel, and as should be inherently obvious, today's thumbnail is meant to honor her and her contributions to the chat, the channel, LawTube, and all the people who knew her. So, and I appreciate those who were with me yesterday during my little RimWorld gaming stream, which was nice to do something chill and calm and just hang out. It was very cool. So, all that good stuff. So, and thank you, Generous, for saying we love Secret McSquirrel. It's nice to see the outpouring of love. It really is. It's nice from everybody, Rob with his short where he created that wood sculpture to honor her. I cried. Definitely a tear left my eye watching that video, that sweet tribute from Rob, to be sure. Yeah. So, and as to like other people and how other people on YouTube or LawTube have or have not honored her, I will say two things that I hope would be obvious, but I'll say them anyway. First of all, people's relationships to Secret McSquirrel differ, right? She was a huge influence on many channels, but each individual creator obviously has their own relationship with Secret McSquirrel, and those relationships differ. So she was not equally close to every member of LawTube, nor for that matter, am I equally close to every member of LawTube. In the event of my passing, I would imagine that some of the tributes to me, the nature and the scope of them would vary because, of course, my relationships are different with each person because that's just how human beings are, right? And the way that we feel about them. So first of all, there's that. And then second of all, people deal with such things in different ways. So some people may not want to say things because it's too painful for them or they're not ready or whatever. And that's okay too. They say there's no wrong way to grieve. I tend to believe that's true. Some people want to grieve by saying something. Some people want to grieve by doing something. Some people want to grieve privately. Some people want to just press on and continue in their work. They feel like that's a good way of honoring people in their lives, or it's a good way to distract themselves or stuff like that. So, I won't condemn someone for dealing with it. And some people just want to move on. And, that's okay too, I think. So I think different people respond to things in different ways. Kelly says a reminder of a Sour Patch Kid, sour to start, but sweet at the finish. I am not 100% sure how to interpret that comment, Kelly, but thanks, I guess. So yeah, thank you for your comment. Trying to understand why it won't be thrown out if Disney is separate from Reedy Creek, then Disney doesn't have standing. I tried to explain this. Like there's it's complicated, right? Because obviously there's a bit of an intertwined relationship. Disney has been running Reedy Creek since 1967. So there's a legal distinction between the two, but unseparating that legal distinction raises complications. Yes, Disney has, I don't think standing is their fundamental issue, although you could certainly raise the issue of standing. I guess you would raise the issue of standing, but it isn't the first thing that comes to mind when I'm thinking about this. But yeah, Alan Parker giving 20 gift memberships, which is appreciated. We appreciate everyone who's here, as always. We appreciate your continuing support of the channel, and we appreciate everyone's continuing support of the channel. It's a good thing. All right. Let's do a news story. Let's see what else we got. All right, let's cover this one. Fugees. All right. Fugees. All right. I don't think the fact that Charles is coronated or not is going to turn the analysis. I don't think that, because Charles is in fact king despite not being coronated because of English law. That is one of the natures of there is never not a sovereign. There's never not a sovereign by law. There's always a sovereign. So in English law. So the moment that Queen Elizabeth dies, someone is sovereign. And the moment Charles dies, someone is sovereign. So yeah, I don't think the fact that he's not been coronated yet is going to turn the legal analysis. So, all right. Next week it'll happen, though, the coronation. I don't think it's going to matter one way or another. I seriously doubt it's going to turn on that. But yeah, anyways. A rapper from the group Fugees has been found guilty of political conspiracy in a trial that included testimony from Leonardo DiCaprio. Pras Michaels found guilty of funneling millions of dollars, to the re-election campaign in 2012. So yeah, when it comes to supporting political candidates and political parties, there are rules. There are rules on how you do that. There is also distinctions between funding the candidate directly and funding the political party when it comes to contribution caps, for example. Also, there's a distinction between funding the candidate, funding the party, funding PACs, independent groups, and all the rest of it, right? So these rules exist. And if you are going around those rules and circumventing those rules, then that's a bad thing to do. So the rapper was found guilty of this conspiracy to funnel millions of dollars to the re-election campaign of Barack Obama in a way that is not in keeping with the rules as it relates to such things. All right, let's learn a little bit more. A Fugees rapper was convicted on Wednesday in result of the multi-million-dollar political conspiracy trial. Pras Michael was accused of funneling money to the Barack Obama re-election campaign through a fugitive, Joe Lowe, one of the primary financiers of the film of Wolf of Wall Street, which is pretty hilarious. So one of the primary financiers of Wolf of Wall Street, a movie all about circumventing rules and getting busted for it, has also themselves been busted for circumventing rules when it comes to money. So that's kind of hilarious. He was also accused of attempting to stop a Justice Department investigation and influence an extradition case relating to this. So Obstruction of justice, never a good thing. A jury in Washington, D.C. found the rapper guilty of all the charges, including conspiracy and acting as an unregistered agent of a foreign government. That foreign government registration law busts a lot of people, a surprising number of people. You wouldn't think it would be that big a deal, but it winds up busting a large number of people, right? If you are an actor on behalf of a foreign government, you have to register under federal law, right? You just have to register and be like, hi, I am acting on behalf of a foreign government, because the US government has an interest in knowing that, because you're acting on behalf of a foreign government, right? It's not illegal to act on behalf of a foreign government inherently, although of course, depending on what you're doing, that might be illegal, but it's not inherently illegal to act on behalf of a foreign government in the United States. But the United States has an interest in knowing that, because the United States, as a sovereign, has an interest in knowing who's trying to influence peddle it. Foreign governments have a right to try to influence peddle the United States, as the United States has a right to influence peddle them. It's sort of in the nature of what it means to interact globally. Diplomats, I mean, that's fundamentally what diplomats do. Fundamentally, right? It's like, hi, I exist to represent so-and-so. I would like you to accede to our desires, right? So that's fine. And if you want to have private entities do that as well, then that's also fine. But the United States government would like to know that, so that when they're dealing with you, they'd like to know that you're really acting on behalf of the foreign government. And if you don't register, that's illegal. And this gets a surprising number of people, it seems, for some reason. People never register. So they get, or well, that's not fair to say they never register. Many people don't register and they get busted. So yeah. The defense argued that the rapper simply wanted to make money and got bad legal advice. Uh-huh. Sure, that's the problem. Uh-huh. Throw the lawyers under a bus. I'm sure that's the problem. After the verdict, he chose not to comment, but the lawyer said he's extremely disappointed and plans to appeal. Good luck, I'm sure. So you can't speak a lot that you've registered if you're doing about a foreign government sounds like abridgment of freedom of speech? No. It's not an abridgment of freedom of speech. Again, the question, as always, is whose speech is it? Right? So if you're acting on behalf of a foreign government, it's not your speech. You might be the one talking, but it's not your speech. That's in the nature of the thing. By being an agent for the foreign government, you're an agent. So it's the foreign government's speech. So the United States is restricting the foreign government speech, which the First Amendment doesn't apply to at all, even a little bit. The First Amendment protects the people of the United States. Foreign governments are not the people of the United States. There is no First Amendment implications at all. Zero. The United States has an absolute, unquestioned sovereign right to silence any foreign government or any foreign government speaker unilaterally, and there's nothing that stops them, except, of course, diplomacy. So, no, it's not an infringement of freedom of speech because it's not your speech, because you're an agent. So you're the one speaking for them. So it's their speech. So, no, not a problem. But thank you. Yeah, not an issue. Not an issue. When it comes to First Amendment analysis, who is the one speaking is always a good place to start. Who is speaking? That is a critical question in the First Amendment analysis. We just covered this a little bit with the whole DeSantis thing, right? Because we're talking about like, oh, it's Reedy Creek. Okay, so who's speaking? Florida? Because Reedy Creek isn't sovereign. So who's speaking? Florida? So, yeah. So, Florida wants to restrict itself. You know? Yeah. All right. No, Karen. No, Karen. Belonging to the bar is not a title of nobility. No, absolutely not. No. No, absolutely not. It's okay though. I've only been a lawyer for 15 years, and I'm only considered among members of the LawTube community an expert in constitutional law. But what do I know? Oh, Lord. Okay. During the trial, the former rapper took the stand. He argued that the person that he was working with wanted a picture with Obama and was willing to pay millions of dollars to get it. So he really wants a picture with Obama? Fine. He's willing to pay to get it. Potentially also fine. But you have to go through the proper mechanisms. The rapper agreed to help and use some of the money he got to pay his friends to attend the events, and no one told him it's illegal. Yeah, but that doesn't really matter, of course, because you need to know what the law is on such things. DiCaprio and the other person involved in this story apparently became friends after a birthday party. DiCaprio saying, I understood him to be a businessman with many different connections in Abu Dhabi and Malaysia. The actor explained that he had met the rapper in the 90s while backstage at a Fugees concert. The other person involved in this story became a regular contributor to DiCaprio's charitable foundation and eventually floated the idea of providing the primary financing for Wolf of Wall Street, which, probably is fine. People can fund movies if they want, but, maybe trying to get some influence along the way. DiCaprio said he had the funding vetted before entering into a business relationship, always a wise idea, trying to figure out who you're getting into business with. I was given a green light by my team as well as my studio. He's a legitimate person wanting to invest in a movie. Fine. That's fine. Just trying to follow the law, that's always a good thing. The actor also testified about a conversation he once had with the individual regarding millions of dollars he planned to donate to Obama's campaign. It's a significant sum, something to the tune of $20 to $30 million. I said, wow, that's a lot of money. And as a foreign individual, as a person who is not a US citizen or a US national, when they are contributing to political campaigns, as one would appreciate, that has different rules. Right? Because again, the United States government has a bit of an interest when it comes to foreign nationals or foreign states providing money for elections. So, this foreign national, foreign citizen wants to give $20 to $30 million to the Obama campaign. Wow, I wonder if that might have any rules involved with it we might need to follow. Wow, maybe requiring some further inquiry. All right, let's wrap this up. Thus, that brings us to the end of the story about the former Fugees rapper who's been involved in a conspiracy to funnel money from a foreign national to a US campaign. And that seems to violate some laws, as one would anticipate. Because, foreign nationals giving money to political campaigns inside the United States might raise a flag. Because foreign nationals giving money to a US campaign. So there are probably rules on that. Fugees rapper over here apparently didn't think that there was anything wrong with this and helped to funnel the millions of dollars to the campaign involved in this conspiracy and now is convicted of the conspiracy. So, yeah. So not particularly surprising. Probably should have seen that one coming. And that from the moment brings us into discussion of this story. Lord. Let's take millions of dollars from this foreign national and give it to the Obama campaign. I can't see any problem with that. All right. Let me hide where the money is coming from. I can't see any problem with that. Let's go, Brandon. Ask why Stream Elements is trying to ban you. It doesn't try to ban anyone. It just tries to keep the rules in place. We do have rules, for example, against using capital letters, for example, which is typically how the bot gets you, because we don't allow excess capital letters because I don't like them. It is in the rules. The bot tells you about the rules every like 15 minutes. Plus, I believe when you sign on for the first time, you have to click through the rules as well. And also, it does prohibit certain words because, you know, we want to keep the chat at least semi-clean. So some of the more aggressive words are banned by the bot. But the bot just strikes the comment and like puts you in a very brief timeout. I think it's like 1 second, you know, or something, but or maybe for the more aggressive words, it gets a little bit feistier. But, you know, you shouldn't run into problems with the bot if you're obeying the rules. The rules are, you know, don't use all caps and remain a positive influence, for example. So what am I drinking? I am drinking my morning breakfast concoction, which I drink sometimes because it's good. What it is it is about 18 ounces of coffee. And then I throw in a scoop of protein powder, but I don't use whey. I use, what's it called? Casein protein powder because it takes longer to digest, which is good because I'm trying to like slow down my appetite. So you don't get the spike of whey. So like whey protein is typically used more for workouts or in post-workout because you're trying to get a lot of like stuff right away. Casein is kind of the opposite end of that equation, right? It's much more slow acting, slower on the uptake. You know, when we click through the rules, no one reads them. Okay, you're still bound by the rules anyway. So, like all click-through agreements. So, do you read the rules? I don't know. Are you bound by them? Yeah. But you know, anyways. So casein protein, and then I throw in 2 scoops of this amazing green powder because it's nice to get some veggie-related vitamins in my morning. So I throw in 2 scoops of that. And then I throw in 200 calories worth of butter. So that's 2 teaspoons. The reason for that, of course, is twofold. First, the fat helps to digest the protein. So getting a little fat helps to digest the protein and make it a little bit easier to digest. So that's plus. And also getting a little fat in the morning is just always generally a good idea. So that is my morning breakfast. So that's 200 calories for the butter, then about 150 calories for the protein powder. Maybe it's 120. So that's 320 plus the calories for the green stuff, which I forget what that is, but it's about 400 calories, give or take, with 18 ounces of coffee. So a good way to start the morning. Have I tried coconut oil? Yes, I've used coconut oil and MCT oil. Sometimes I use that too. But today I just use butter. But yes, I have. Doesn't look appetizing. It actually tastes great. So recommended. And if you need a little additional sweetness, of course, you could throw in some honey or some sugar or something. But yeah. So all that good stuff. All right. Thank you, Aussie J, for becoming a member. We do love everyone who hits that beautiful, beautiful join button. Thank you as well. And also on the no one reads the rules. Again, the bot does give you the rules like every 15 minutes in chat, just to remind you. So I'm doing as much as I can to bring you attention to the rules. If you keep ignoring the rules, when the bot tells you about it, like every 15 minutes, I don't know what to tell you. And yes, you could also do heavy cream. to accomplish the same objective, get fat in that way through heavy cream. That would also work. I've done that in the past, heavy cream. That's also a really good way to accomplish the same objective. So yeah, that works great too. All right. Several options when it comes to such things. All right. A long-running dispute from New York taxi cab owners has apparently come to an end as the New York taxi cab owners have lost a long-ranging court battle over the existence of Uber. So Uber has been in place for quite a long time at this point and was noticeably impactful on cities like New York and the cabs of New York, because suddenly all these cabs suddenly had a lot of competition. And that was really bad for business. Also really bad for the amount of money that taxi cab owners were paying to own the cabs. So they were very expensive, extremely expensive, as we're going to learn in the story. And so they were really upset about losing their investment. But the appeal court has seemingly put an end to this issue and said you can't sue, even though it means you're losing literally millions of dollars each. Let's learn more. A group of cab owners had spent years trying to sue the city for failing to act in good faith when auctioning off taxi medallions, permits that allow taxis to operate. So in New York, as many other places, to run a taxi, you of course need to get licensed. The taxi cab itself needs to be licensed, in addition to the person running it. The cab itself. And New York, by law, said, here's how many licenses we're going to give out. They put a number on it. This is how many total licenses exist. And as a result of that, people wanted them because there was, there was a guaranteed, or so it seemed, guaranteed customer base, and also would prevent other people from coming into place. So it was considered to be an investment. And that investment, of course, has come to an end. The Court of Appeals in New York has unanimously ruled against the cab owners, the court finding the city was under no obligation to keep in place any rules limiting ride sharing. So, of course, there were no rules with ride sharing, when they first created the thing, because the concept of ride sharing didn't really exist. Uber came along and changed that. So they did have a system where the taxi cabs were basically the only method of getting this kind of transportation, and it was enormously profitable. And then said, okay, in addition to having the limited medallions, which they are still limited, so in addition to having the limited medallions, how about unlimited ride sharing? And this made the taxi cabs, obviously, revenue go down substantially. And they were sad. In a statement, the spokesperson for the city said the court ruling rightly recognized taxi owners could not sue. We are grateful that the state's high court had put to bed this lawsuit. Also, by the way, just for way of, I'll do it this way. Thus, that brings us to the end of this discussion regarding the taxi cabs. The medallions for the cabs were selling for about $1.3 million each at the time that Uber came into existence. That's how much they were. The taxi cab themselves had to get a license. The license came in the form of this thing called a medallion. It's a license, but we gave it a special name. We called it a medallion, which I guess makes it seem fancy. How much was the medallion? About $1.3 million. Because it was a guaranteed revenue stream for the taxi cabs. They would get this medallion and put it on a taxi, and then they would have basically all the people that wanted to get around the city by hailing cabs or hailing cars. There's always, of course, the subway system in New York, but If you wanted to get a ride from a taxi, you had to get a taxi, and these taxis to run $1.3 million. It took to buy a medallion for a taxi each. And then Uber came along, and the city's like, we're not going to do anything about this. How about $0? How about $0 to run an Uber? I mean, initially, the regulations got a little bit more strict after the fact, but initially $0. And even today, I think it's basically de minimis compared. And all these people who had invested millions of dollars, millions upon millions of dollars in the taxi cabs were really, really sad because suddenly their medallions were worth significantly less. I mean, not zero, but significantly less because now people have options beyond getting the yellow cabs. They can get the ride share. So their investments went down a lot. And they sued, and the appeal court's like, no. The rules for medallions are the rules for medallions, and the fact that New York has this thing called rideshare now, well, you were never guaranteed no competition. And now that there's competition, well, that's unfortunate, but you can't sue. So all these taxi cabs are now, not as profitable as they once were because of this competition. And that, for the moment, brings us to the end of discussion of this story. Yep. You live in New York at a liquor license costs $1 to $2 million. I'd be pissed if I had one. Suddenly said, let's put a bar on every rural corner. Yeah, well, yeah. Am I doing keto? Not exclusively, no, Eric, but I do try to limit my carbs. And try to avoid some of the carbs. So yeah, but I'm not doing exclusively keto. Why so much for a medallion? Supply and demand, man. Supply and demand, right? It was a guaranteed revenue source. People calculated how much revenue it would bring in. It was a limited supply of the thing. And apparently the market price was $1.3 million. And now not so much. $1.34 million to be precise in 2013, if we want to be really precise about it. Oh, by the way, I did make a mistake. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Well, it's not a critical mistake, but I think in the way I phrased the story, I said that they sold for a peak of $1.34 million. And what I meant to say is an average of $1.34 million. So $1.34 million was the cost on average, but they were auctioned. So some people pay more than $1.34 million. They averaged for $1.34 million. But some people paid more than that. Some people paid less, that being the nature of the average. So not a critical mistake, but still. Yes, on average in November 2013, to be exact. Yeah. Oh, and this is nice too. In the auction terms, this is a nice one. The auction terms included this following thing on the bid forms. So the city of New York on the bid forms made them sign this statement in order to bid. In order to participate in the auction, you had to sign this. So the people who bought the medallions signed the following thing. I certify that I have not relied on any statements or representations from the city of New York in determining the amount of my bid. I understand and agree the city of New York has not made any representations or warranties as to the present or future value of any taxi cab medallion, the operation of a taxi cab as permitted thereby, or the present or future application or provisions of the rules or applicable law, other than the warranty clear title of the medallion. Qualifying bidders, therefore, acknowledge that no warranties are made express as applied as to any other matter other than title. So we are not warranting, the city of New York is not warranting the provisions or law, only title. Only title. So you bought exactly what you thought you were buying. It just turned out to be worthless. Oops. Were cabbies able to pass medallions in their wills? Yeah, they were property. They were per cab. So I'm not 100% sure, but I think you could, like, the medallion was permanently affixed to a particular cab, but I think you could move it. I'm not sure exactly what the rules were, but you couldn't just like move it willy-nilly, because you had to, like, I think, like, literally, like, there was like a metal thing and you had to, like, basically physically attach it to the car. But there were rules for transferring it because the medallion is yours, right? It's independent of the physical vehicle. So you could move it around with paperwork, but yeah. Let's see what we got. All right. Let's try this story. See how this goes. Mute button when I need to store it would be good. That's fair. That's totally fair. I appreciate that. I apologize, and I should use the mute button. That's perfectly fair. I apologize, and I will try to remember to use the mute button in the future when I do that. So I apologize. I am sorry about that. I'll try to be a little bit more conscious of that when that happens. All right. This is Colorado, right? Yeah. All right. In crime news, in Colorado, a group of high schoolers are being charged with extreme indifference murder in a rock throwing death relating to a highway. So this happens from time to time because I don't know why. People, usually young people, throw rocks, and by rocks we mean like basically boulders. They throw them from like overpasses onto traffic. I don't know why they do this, but they do sometimes. And when they do this, unsurprisingly, time to time, they manage to hit and kill somebody. And that has happened in Colorado in the death of this 20-year-old, because these people were throwing basically boulders onto highways for fun. And so, yeah, that happened, and now they're being charged with murder. Here is on the left the woman who died, and on the right, 3 teenagers who were involved in this murder. So, not going great. 3 teens have been charged with murdering Alexa Bartel with a landscaping rock as the 20-year-old spoke on a phone with a friend. So, just going about her life doing her thing, and suddenly landscaping rock. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office in Colorado announced yesterday it made 3 arrests in the killing that now is first-degree extreme indifference murder. The trio, who are all 18, stand accused of a rock-throwing spree that ultimately resulted in this death. So, as is typical, they were just doing this a lot for some reason. And, it's just kind of a law of numbers. Every time you do it, you roll the dice. And eventually the dice come up snake eyes and, you kill somebody. So, good times. When authorities first started investigating the case, they said suspects, possibly from a vehicle or the side of a road, threw a large rock at a victim's vehicle, which struck and killed her. So they're just apparently standing on the side of a highway or on the bed of a truck or something, just lobbing rocks onto the highway. A little bit more typical that people do this by dropping it from bridges and overpasses, but I guess to mix things up, we'll just do it from the side of the road. And amazingly, that's also a problem. Investigators say they were looking for a pickup truck, eventually tracked down a 2016 Chevy Silverado that they linked to the spree. The rock smashed the windshield and killed her by sending the driver's Chevy Spark off the road, causing her to smash through a fence and come to a stop on the field. A friend was on the phone with the person who died when it all went silent. So there was someone on the phone with her when it happened. In the moments before she was killed, she was on the phone talking to a friend. Her friend tracked her phone and drove to the location. She eventually found the person fatally wounded inside the car. So the friend apparently had Find My Phone access or whatever to her friend's phone. And when the phone suddenly went dead, the friend decided for whatever reason to try to track the friend down. Not sure why they decided to do that, but they did. And they went and found the phone, and then they had the ability to find their dead friend in the field. So that's pretty horrifying. The investigators quickly determined there had been several rocks-throwing incidents at that night. So not the first time that night it had happened. Other rocks were being thrown. So at least 4 other incidences that day, apparently, landscaping rocks described as larger than softballs smashed through the windshield of a vehicle. So, a fairly significant rock. If you throw a rock the size of a softball or larger than a softball at a car that's traveling at speed and a person hits the rock, going say like 60 miles an hour, they hit the rock the size of a softball and it hits their head, what do you think is going to happen? Overnight, the sheriff's investigators arrested 3 suspects in connection with the death. The victim was killed when the rock was thrown through her windshield as she was traveling northbound of India Street. Her vehicle was the last of a series of vehicles struck by large landscaping rocks in the spree that began shortly after 10 p.m. So apparently for 2 hours, give or take, this trio of people were throwing rocks from their car or from the side of the road, and eventually the rocks hit somebody and killed them. In order to find the suspects, they did a geofencing search warrant, which is very typical. So basically what they did is they got a warrant that said, give us all the cell phones that are within the area of the time of the incident, right? Give us every cell phone that was nearby this location at these times, on the theory that, many people have cell phones and it will help you track down somebody or a witness to it, right? So it may not necessarily be the suspect, it might be a witness, but it will give you a place to start. So like, hey, give us all the cell phones that were in this location. Okay. And then based on that, we were able to track it down to the person who was involved. Investigators believe the suspects turned their vehicle around and snapped a photo of the crime scene before taking off. So apparently, geniuses to the cause over here might have taken a photo of their own criminal action from their own phone. That should go over really super well in the trial. Here is Exhibit 1, photo they took themselves of the crime scene. That helps narrow it down a lot. Apparently, they met the day after the death to get their story straight. So, conspiracy. In Colorado, first-degree murder by extreme indifference is committed when circumstances evidence an attitude of malice, manifesting extreme indifference, basically recklessness, to the balance of human life. So yeah, you're there when the defendant engages in conduct which creates a grave risk of death and thereby causes death. So basically, reckless murder, which, this basically is, right? We were doing something with malice, basically universal carelessness that was going to cause death. Should a bunch of 18-year-olds know that throwing rocks the size of softballs at cars moving at speed might cause someone to die? I would think. And now they're all going to jail probably for many, many years, if not life. So super duper fun for everybody. Thus, that brings us to the end of the story of the unfortunate death of Alexa Bartel, who was murdered by Zachary Kwok, Joseph Coing, and Nicholas Carroll Cheek, 3 18-year-olds who decided that they would like to have fun one night by throwing large rocks at cars. Because, I don't know, that's a good time. And amazingly, one of their rocks they threw managed to cause a woman to die. And now they're being charged with basically reckless murder because they did reckless murder. And so now they're all being charged with first-degree reckless murder. So they're going to jail, basically forever, because they threw rocks and killed somebody. And I don't know why people do this, but, well, they'll have a lot of years to think about it, I guess. And that brings us to the end of the discussion of this story. Yeah. Is this like a balcony person who throws patio furniture off a balcony? I don't know. I think this is worse because like the inherent dangerousness of is even more obvious to me in this situation, right? It's like, because like there's a difference, I think, between like throwing a couch off a balcony and hitting somebody, which is dumb, and then throwing rocks at moving cars. Because in the one situation, you're being a complete idiot. I mean, potentially, right? It never occurred to me that throwing a couch off my balcony might hurt someone below because I'm a complete fucking moron, right? Versus I'm knowingly throwing rocks at moving cars with people inside. So to my mind, this is worse. It's a little bit harder to make that case. I threw my couch off my balcony, not even begin to contemplate for a moment it could possibly injure someone below, versus I threw rocks at moving cars, not even contemplating for a moment it could potentially injure somebody. You see, that's a little bit harder, And I think the law will only allow you to be so stupid. So, could you sell a jury on the idea that I threw my sofa off a balcony without any care or concern in the world about the people below? You might be able to sell a jury on that. Can you sell them on the rock throwing at the cars? I'm going to go with that seems much harder. Right? Whatever mercy we're willing to extend you for your stupidity, for the couch throwing off the balcony seems a little inapplicable in these circumstances. So, yeah. Can the idiot teen defense work? See, this is pretty stupid. That's the problem, right? It's like, okay, we are so dumb. I think the law's only going to let you be so dumb, right? We're a bunch of 18-year-olds, and we are our brains aren't fully developed, and so we make stupid decisions. But throwing rocks at cars, like knowingly, purposefully, we had no idea we might hit somebody and might injure them. We had no idea that might cause the car to like careen off the road and hit somebody and someone would die. Right? I think the idiot teen defense is going to be harder. It's going to be harder to sell. It's going to be harder to sell a jury on I was this stupid. So yeah. Let's see what else we got today. Okay, that sucks. Let's see. I don't know if I want to do this story. Let's see. Do I want to do this story? Yeah, I'll do this story. Can the car shoot the rock throwers? Hmm. It would be hard to properly construct a series of facts that would necessarily allow for that. Um, I suppose. Well, if you had a person who like people repeatedly like throwing rocks at the same car somehow, then yes, right? Because that would be self defense. But you know how you would do it in a singular instance is a little bit unclear. Um, and cars run over the rock throwers. Uh, to the extent it would be required, yes. Uh, the problem, of course, is we're trying to separate ideas of self defense versus revenge. So to the extent that it would be required to escape, then yes, but I don't think they could purposefully again. So if the scenario is some teens standing by the roads with rocks in their hands, then you couldn't self-defense until they threw it. And once they threw it, it's kind of problematic and then it would be revenge. So if you needed to get away from it, yes. Can you beat the shit out of rock throwers, defense of others? If they're doing it repeatedly, then yeah, you could physically stop them. I think so. How about third party seeing their rock about to be thrown? You would have to prove imminence, and that would be difficult. But there might be some situation where it's possible. You know, it would be difficult. It would be difficult on the timing. Keep in mind that Colorado doesn't have a stand your ground law. It doesn't matter. I haven't invoked stand your ground at all. It doesn't matter. I don't think. Yeah. You could self-defense as soon as you realize they're about to throw. That would be tough on the timing. That would be very difficult on the timing. Yeah, that'd be very difficult on the timing. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I would have it would be factually challenging to apply self-defense in this scenario. I think. Is it a case for citizens arrests? If you see it being done in your presence, then sure. Yes. But of course, that invokes its own set of problems. Practically as well as legally. Yeah. All right, so let's see what we can do. All right. Facebook has won a major case against a series of states that were attempting to sue Facebook relating to antitrust. So as Facebook and other companies acquire companies, there's issues of antitrust because it reduces competition. And a bunch of states tried to sue Facebook in relation to this, but the appeals court has put a kibosh on the whole thing. So that appears to be the end of that particular series of suits against Facebook. Let's learn a little bit more about the issues that were involved. An appeal court said it would not revive the lawsuit against Facebook, handing a defeat to dozens of states who sought to undo Facebook's acquisition of WhatsApp and Instagram. So as Facebook merges and acquires with other companies like WhatsApp and Instagram, that potentially poses a potential issue because Facebook is now in control of more of the marketplace and there's less competition. So when do those lines start and when do those lines stop can get tricky. But of course, the government allowed the merger to go forward in the first place, authorizing the merger. And so the states trying to undo that and undo what the federal government had done were unsuccessful in their attempt. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia has upheld a ruling that dismissed the antitrust case. In the ruling, the D.C. Court of Appeals said that dozens of states waited too long to challenge the merger. So one of the issues here is timeliness, and that is the issue that will resolve this. Agreeing with the district court, the appeals panel found that the case was blocked by the doctrine of latches, which prohibits unreasonable delay. So this is similar to the idea of statutes of limitations as it relates to criminal law. Under the criminal law, of course, you have to typically bring a criminal complaint within a series of time. And also, incidentally, some states restrict action when it comes to civil lawsuits for similar things. So sometimes the law says here's a specified period by which you can bring it. Typically, for example, for a standard tort, standard personal harm, standard contract breach, typical periods to bring that lawsuit are usually 1 to 3 years. So that's typically how long you have to bring a complaint that someone attacked you or someone breached a contract with you. That's typical, and of course can be modified by state law. But even where you don't have that idea or you don't have it codified, you have this idea of latches. You can't just sit on your rights indefinitely. You have to bring it within a reasonable amount of time. What is a reasonable amount of time? Well, obviously that's going to be fact specific, but in this particular case, the court found it to be too long. The district court found that the states had waited to sue for years until after Facebook had absorbed and merged with the companies. So if this was going to be a problem, it was presumably a problem at the time of acquisition. After they had already done the merger and stuff with that, it's not the same situation. Because they waited so long, it would have made it much more costly and much more difficult to separate, which is an equitable consideration which latches is tied to. By waiting and sitting on your rights, you have made things more expensive for the other side in a way that's unfair. You could have brought this earlier in a way that would have been less expensive. And because you waited so long, you've prejudiced the other side and eventually that prejudice will tip the balance and prevent you from going forward with the lawsuit in the first place. Thank you very much, Jules Buddha, for your kind super chats. Kind memberships. That's very, very nice. We appreciate everyone who helps to support the channel financially. The court writing that an injunction breaking up Facebook and divesting itself from Instagram and WhatsApp would have severe consequences that would not have existed had the states brought their suit timely. So had they done this when the acquisition was happening or in the immediate aftermath, that would be one situation. But years after the fact, after this is done and they're fully integrated and the concept of a separate Instagram and WhatsApp is somewhat of a distant memory, undoing that would be problematic. And so the states waited too long. A Facebook spokesman praised the ruling and said the company would fight the FTC, Federal Trade Commission's pending litigation relating to some of this. So, there's lawsuits going on in many places, but Facebook has survived at least this challenge, and Facebook will presumably survive other challenges because the merger was approved and presumably they did all the things they were supposed to in the first place. Thus, that brings us to the end of this discussion about the lawsuits from various states relating to the merger of Facebook with WhatsApp and Instagram. The district court ruled that Facebook was in the clear because, of course, the merger had been approved in the first place by the federal government, and more importantly, whatever interest the states had in challenging that was too lately brought because they didn't bring it until after the merger was fully done and complete, and undoing it would be, of course, much more burdensome and expensive, therefore prejudicing Facebook in a way that was not required. So the doctrine of latches coming to the rescue for Facebook, at least in part, in saying that this merger would be allowed to remain in place. And that, for the moment, brings us to the end of discussion of this story. Dun, 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 dun. All right, let's do, I don't know if we should do this story or not. So we will do this and question our decisions, and then we'll do Florida Man to make everyone feel better. So I guess I'll give a content warning on this one because it's a little, but all right. All right, here we go. A 41-year-old woman is being sought in relation to a sexual assault on a 13-year-old boy that she was babysitting. Apparently, the 41-year-old woman sexually assaulted the 13-year-old, holding a knife to his genitals and threatening to cut them off if he told anyone, saying, quote, "Shut up and take it like a man." So things are not going on great here with the babysitting. Here is a picture of a Harris County 41-year-old woman who is currently being sought in relation to this sexual assault of the child she was babysitting. Law enforcement authorities in Texas are searching for the 41-year-old mother who was babysitting the 13-year-old child, who apparently she forced to dress up in women's clothing, then sexually assaulting him, then threatening to cut off his penis if he told anyone. Charlene Gale Cornergay is wanted for aggravated sexual assault of a child under the age of 14. According to the affidavit of probable cause, the incident allegedly took place in the summer of 2021, but was first reported to Texas Department of Family and Protective Services last year. A therapist conducted a forensic interview with the victim, and the report was passed on to police department for further investigation. So the police, this coming to their attention, Department of Family Services did an interview with the child to try to tease out some of this stuff, and apparently they were satisfied that this occurred to the point that they are now trying to find this woman for the arrest. During the interview conducted by the Alliance for Children, the victim stated that on July the 11th of 2021, he was staying in the woman's home and took a shower. Upon getting out of the shower, the woman allegedly told him to put on a dress, heels, and bra, then had sex with him in her room, then had sex with him in her son's room while her son was still sleeping. Wow. Okay, that seems like a lot. The victim also told the investigators that the woman applied lotion on his pee-pee and then performed oral sex on him. According to the victim, when told to stop, she said to shut up and take it like a man. Okay. The woman is also accused of sexually assaulting the child a second time while he was in a bathtub. However, this time when the victim told him to stop, she apparently complied that time around. So, all right. When investigators spoke to the victim's father, he allegedly told him the woman was his son's babysitter and he knew the son that she knew. When investigators spoke to the victim's father, he allegedly told him the woman was his son's babysitter and he knew that she had a son as well. She said that the woman would often tell him she wanted the victim to come to her house and play video games with her son. The father further told police that when his son first came to him with the sexual assault allegations, he couldn't believe it, which, to be fair, it is a bit incredible. So, that would be a little bit, yeah. However, as the son continued to apparently provide graphic details, he knew something happened, explaining his son doesn't know how to express something like that. So the father was initially a bit incredulous, which, is understandable. And then as the son provided further details, he's like, oh, no, this seems like something is wrong here. The victim's father also stated he was on the phone when his son stated that the woman put the knife to his penis and stated she'd be told it was called off. So, fun. At the time of the sexual assault, the woman involved in this apparently had just received a deferred sentence after pleading guilty to a charge of possessing meth. So, she had recently been in some legal troubles. I'm not sure whether the father knew that or not, because having someone who pled guilty to possessing meth be your babysitters of your son seems like a questionable choice. So unclear whether he knew that at the time. The state filed court documents to fully adjudicate that case, claiming that they violate terms of the sentence by committing the sexual assault. So we're going to violate the probation on top of everything else. Apparently, the woman had also been convicted of charges of theft and insurance fraud. Again, unclear whether the father knew any of this. So I suppose conducting background checks on the babysitters of your children is now increasingly prudent. Thus, that brings us to the end of discussion of this woman, Charlene Konograd, who is wanted for sexual assault of a 13-year-old and apparently is being sought. So if you see this woman, call the police. She is wanted. Please call the police. Don't do anything yourself. Just call the police and report, hey, I saw the woman who did the sexual assault, and let's figure out what's going on. So we will try to tease all that out, but yeah, apparently this 41-year-old woman did the assault of a 13-year-old at knife point. And that, for the moment, brings us to the end of discussion of this story. Are we happy we did that? Or are we not happy? If she's not in jail? No, she's not in jail because we're looking for her. So no, she's not in jail. She's wanted. Someone wants her. All right, someone wants her. She may have trouble finding a man in her life, but someone wants her. The state of Texas would like to spend some more time with her. All right. Yeah. I don't suspect she'll be on the run very long. Uh, I'm sure we'll find her. It's pretty hard. It's not impossible. It's pretty difficult to completely disappear. It's doable, but it's very inconvenient. If you use your cell phone that's tied to you, they'll find you. If you use credit cards or electronic payments, they'll find you. If you withdraw money from an ATM, they'll find you. So it's difficult to completely disappear, especially when they're really looking for you. So, yeah. Yeah. It's difficult to vanish completely. Yeah, and she doesn't seem like the sharpest tool in the toolbox. If I put my mind to it, I'd have trouble disappearing completely. And I'd like to think I'm an intelligent person, but it would be very difficult. It would be difficult for me to disappear, you know, voluntarily. If someone killed me and stuffed me into a hole in the ground, I'd disappear that way. But I mean, it would be difficult for me to voluntarily disappear and, no one to figure it out. That'd be challenging. And I'd like to think I'm an intelligent person. You know, the biggest problems are just the financials. Because where am I getting money? As long as I'm paying cash, I'll be probably okay. So I have to get rid of my cell phone and rid of my computer. And I have to acquire new computer or new cell phone that's not tied to me and will never be tied to me. So I can't use credit to pay for it. I have to pay cash for the phone and this plan wherever I go, and not sign into any of my old accounts. And I have to either pay cash or find some electronic method of payment that's also not tied to me in any way. So prepaid cards, maybe. And yeah, that would be challenging. It'd be challenging. This is assuming, of course, that the entire apparatuses of the government is looking for me. Right? They really want to find me. So it's me versus like the Texas Rangers or the US Marshals or something in this when they really want to find me. So I have to beat like the FBI. How do I beat the FBI? This is going to be challenging at best. Yeah. This is going to be challenging at best. Let's go, Brandon, since someone's given this some thought. Well, I read a lot. And I listen to a lot. So unsurprisingly, or maybe it is surprising, I'm not sure. But either way, like I've read on the issue. I've listened to people speak about the issue because I like to read and I like to listen to things. I like to be well educated. I have some knowledge base on such issues. So like I'm not extremely well informed, but I do have some passing knowledge of the basic fundamentals, you know. And reading a lot of court cases, I know how they get a lot of people, right? So it's like, oh, I know how they get a lot of people. It's like, oh, I'm gonna use a warrant on your cell phone. It's like, okay, so I can't have a cell phone. I'm going to use warrants on your accounts, your electronic accounts. Okay, so I can't use my electronic accounts. I'm going to get warrants on your bank accounts. Okay, so I can't use my bank accounts. So it's like I have to figure out a method of creating things and using things that are completely detached from my identity. I have to somehow acquire devices that have no connection to me and will never have a connection to me. So they can't ever use a pre-existing account. They can't ever be tied to a pre-existing bank account. You know, I have to disappear off the grid. So like, it's like, well, I read a lot. I think about things. Yeah. You know, that's, yeah. The Bitcoin guy who couldn't do it, but he was an idiot. Yeah, see, you know, he wasn't trying very hard. You know, well, yeah. Yeah, going underground isn't hard to plan out. Burner cell phone, cash, shut down social media, prepaid Visa under alias, lots of ways to do that. Yes. Well, it's inconvenient. It's inconvenient. And the thing that's going to be ultimately the problem in the end is where I'm getting more money. Right? That's going to be the biggest problem because I need to figure out a way of acquiring money without it being tied to me. So I guess I am doing either illegal things like selling drugs or something, which I'm not sure how I'm acquiring them in the first place to sell them, but whatever. Either ways, or I'm stealing things. But if I want to remain legal, it's like, how am I acquiring money or things I can turn into money legally without being tied to me? Like, I can't get a job because they're going to want a social security number. You know, I'm also not going to be able to pay taxes, which is also illegal. But you know, well, if the not paying taxes is all they got, they can't find me. So, you know, yeah. Anyone who saw Shawshank Redemption should have thought about it. Yeah, well, Shawshank Redemption is set at a period when cell phones don't exist and credit cards don't exist. Shawshank Redemption is set at a period of time where these things don't exist. Bank accounts exist, but bank accounts are harder to track because we don't have the ACH exchange yet. So even bank accounts are harder to track. So, you know, when Andy Dufresne sets up a bank account in Mexico, he can probably use his real ID and no one will figure it out because there's no way for the US government to track that down because the ACH doesn't exist yet. And there's like no particular so yeah, Andy Dufresne would have an easier time of it because Andy Dufresne isn't using cell phones or computers or credit cards or any of that stuff. So yeah, you'd have to, yeah. See, that time I muted it when I started sniffing. I didn't get it right away, but I had consciousness to remember. So I'm trying. I'm learning. Yeah. So all right. Well, let's end this stream. For today's Florida Man, we have wildlife officers on video showing a man killing more than 30 pythons and a pet boa at a South Florida reptile facility. Oh wait, these are the officers themselves doing it. Okay, I need to rephrase this. Let me start over. Sorry, I misunderstood the story. Hold on. It's worse. All right, hold on. I can do this. All right. For today's Florida Man, we have a series of Florida men in the form of wildlife officers. Wildlife officers to help control those wildlife in the Florida, many wildlife that need to be controlled that are a danger to people in Florida. Well, the wildlife officers themselves decided to kill 30 pythons and a pet boa at a South Florida reptile facility. So maybe not so much with wildlife because they were being kept in a reptile facility. And this was caught on camera. Apparently, after the officers killed a pregnant pet boa constrictor, they realized the mistake, and decided to go on a snake-related killing spree. So apparently they had enough with these MF snakes in this MF reptile facility. Let's learn more. Officers with Florida's Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, unclear whether or not they also deal with bees, were caught on video killing dozens of pythons and a pregnant boa constrictor at a reptile facility in South Florida. The United States Association of Reptile Keepers in Florida posted the 7-minute video showing 4 officers killing reptiles using what appeared to be a nail gun. Okay. So they're going around apparently killing pet snakes with a nail gun for some reason. All right. The Wildlife Federation said the officers killed 29 pythons, reticulated pythons, and 5 Burmese pythons owned by a man named Chris Coffey, as well as pet boa constrictor. So they killed 35 snakes, apparently. After the officers killed the pregnant boa constrictor, their reaction seen in the video may indicate they immediately realized they made a mistake. According to the Wildlife Association, the 10-year-old pet boa constrictor was misidentified as a python. So apparently the wildlife officers mistake a boa constrictor for a python, because that's a really easy mistake to make. Okay. I can't watch it. Those animals mean a lot to me, the man said of the video. It's like watching someone kill my kids. Boas, which are legal to own in Florida, are among the most popular breed of pet snakes. According to the story, the slaughtered boa was a treasured pet that they had raised since a baby. As for the 34 dead pythons, the man possessed them legally with a permit that made the Wildlife Commission's actions. Okay, let me see. As for the 34 dead pythons, the man legally possessed them with a permit that had been made obsolete in 2021, but the snakes should have been grandfathered in and exempted from new regulations. So the man acquired the pythons legally. He had a legal permit for them. He had done everything right. The Florida Wildlife Committee decided to do a different way, but this man was possessing the permits legally. And so he should have been under the old regulations. So they were not illegal pythons. The Wildlife Association says that after rules banning the snakes were passed, he was unable to rehome all the pythons before the deadline. So he was having some problems trying to find homes for them. About a year ago, the man allegedly notified the Wildlife Federation. About a year ago, the man About a year ago, the man allegedly notified the wildlife people that he's having difficulty rehoming the animals and asked for time extension to remain on good terms. So he went to the government and said, hey, I'm having trouble finding homes for the snakes because, you made it illegal. So it's a little hard for me to find homes for them, but I'm trying. Could I get an extension of time? However, apparently the Federation, no, let me do this again. Apparently the wildlife people, the state police, responded to this request for an extension of time by raiding his facilities, arresting him, and issuing 2 charges for each possessed python, 72 counts. Wow. So the Wildlife Commission apparently having none of this over here. The Wildlife Commission, no. The wildlife people for the state says, no. The association that protects snakes says the cops, rather than seize the snakes, officers told the individual that he had to keep them in captivity and he could not rehome or euthanize them or else he'd be arrested again. So the government says, okay, you can't rehome them, you can't kill them, and apparently can't possess them either, which doesn't leave you with a lot of options, to be honest. The pythons were being maintained at a facility in West Palm Beach. The police, for their part, said in a statement, the visit was an attempt to determine if all the pythons held at facilities were accounted for, since an escaped python had recently been found. So they were concerned that maybe one of the pythons escaped, which would result in, counting them, but apparently not so much. However, the Wildlife Association, which protects snakes, says the facility visit was unannounced raid and a massacre. According to the police, they had no intention of euthanizing the animals, which I think is made clear since apparently their method of euthanasia was a nail gun, which doesn't strike me as the preferred method for such things. The individual allowed officers into the facility, where apparently they spent 4 hours killing snakes, firing multiple shots to the head of some snakes when it appeared their first shots failed to kill them. This is not going great over here from Florida's wildlife people. The Association for Snakes questions how the officers who are not competent enough to identify animals are empowered by the state to kill them. And where euthanasia is necessary, should be done probably, by a veterinarian or some other approved methods, probably less with the nail gun. The organization is now calling on DeSantis to hold the persons accountable by demanding resignation. It's horrible, hideous as an animal lover, even of snakes or any kind of animal. See animals treated like this is just unconscionable. Thus, here is a picture of the Florida Wildlife Police holding a snake in the facility. Apparently, this snake they're holding in this picture, what the police are saying is they thought this was a python. The snake in this picture, they thought was a python. Okay. And apparently decided to kill all the pythons with a nail gun, including this snake, which they thought was a python. So, yeah, the state of Florida apparently changed the rules on ownerships of pythons. This guy appeared to be trying to follow the law and move the snakes, and they said you couldn't kill the animals and you had to keep them, and he was trying to follow the law. And apparently the officers came in and just killed all of the snakes and his boa constrictor for some reason. So, yeah, that happened. And that, for the moment, is the end of that story. And that brings us to the end of our stream today. I would just like to kindly remind everyone as we're signing off, kindly remind everyone to please check the pinned comment in the chat. Would you please be so kind as to check the pinned comment in the chat? We are trying to help raise some money for our deceased friend, Secret McSquirrel, in relation to funeral costs, and help the family defer some of those costs. You might have previously given money to Secret McSquirrel in relation to helping her with her home expenses, but that money is tied up for the moment, and it's unclear what will happen to that money in relation to the money previously raised to help Secret McSquirrel with her expenses. It's unclear at this time what will happen to that money. It is potentially an asset that now belongs to the estate of Secret McSquirrel. So it may be the case that the family will get that money. It may be the case that the money will be refunded. I honestly don't know. But at least for the moment, it's unclear what will happen to it. So it seems to be tied up at the moment. So a new GoFundMe had to be created to help with the funeral expenses so that it wouldn't be tied up in that way. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen to that or not I don't know what's going to happen to that but yeah, there again is the link. Just Giving, crowdfunding, and trying to raise some money for that. Is this a weekly stream? This is actually a daily stream. This is every morning. We didn't do one yesterday because of the death of Secret McSquirrel, and I wanted a break. But we've been doing this every day for 3 weeks. And so we do this daily. Usually it's a lot shorter. Usually it's like an hour or an hour 10, 15 minutes. So not quite sure what happened that we were doing it so long, but you know, anyways, we've been doing it, and that's fine. I don't mind that it's longer, and you don't mind it's longer. I'm having a good time. And it's nice spending some time with you guys. Yeah, so it is really surprising that that she's gone. Uh, Here's the page Just Giving to raise money for Azzy Sullivan, Secret McSquirrel. Azzy Sullivan sadly slipped away at 2:30 a.m. on April the 26th of a terrible time with cancer. Many known Azzy via the world of magic and cabaret in Scotland and beyond. She contributed hugely to the scene, always with warmth and kindness despite her health issues. The person who's doing this says, I now discover Azzy had a whole other life as Secret McSquirrel on YouTube and Twitter. She's spoken of highly across the world and like to give her the best send off possible. Her wonderful birds will be rehomed. They brought such joy on a daily basis. I've grown more fond of them too. Rest in peace, magical friend. Sucks. Totally sucks. I've decided that I oppose cancer. I know that's a hot take and everything, but I've decided that I oppose cancer and I don't like it very much. I also oppose death for Azzy. I also can't say that I approve of the Grim Reaper killing Azzy. I can't say that I approve of that. You think I can sue the Grim Reaper for loss of consortium? Where would I give service? Eh. So if you would help to raise some money, and of course, although she hasn't been part of this channel for a little while, Stephanie, of course, was part of our channel for a long time, and she, of course, struggling with cancer. And I don't like that very much either, that cancer has impacted her and caused her such health problems. And looks like it will eventually kill her. The cancer, at least in part, inhibited our ability to have a relationship, which was disappointing, personally. And it's not her fault. It's not. I don't want to make this like it's a her fault thing. It's not. Because she can't be blamed. You know? It you know, she was sick a lot. Stephanie is sick a lot. And she had so many medical treatments and so many doctor's visits and so many things that became impossible for us to spend time with each other. You know, we could never coordinate things. We could never, you know, I offered to come to her. I offered her to come to me, you know, and tried to find things that would make it work. And it became just impossible for us to spend time together because she wouldn't even know when she would have to have treatments in hospitals because, you know, that's the nature of her progression with cancer. And so it became impossible for us to coordinate things. And, you know, so it took away a relationship I cared about as well. and so it's so unpredictable. It was challenging, and I really hope somehow, some way, Stephanie will beat cancer and live a long, prosperous life, because I don't want her to be ill. So sucks. Yeah, it wasn't her fault. It wasn't anybody's fault. And then then you have other unexpected things on top of that, because Richard Hoag, for example, with his stroke, it's like all these things impacting people you care about. And my natural impulse is to fix the problem, which I think is the natural impulse of many men. I think many men have the natural impulse of, I want to fix the problem. We don't like to see people we care about in pain. And it's like, or dying. So part of me is frustrated, because with Secret McSquirrel, of course, I can't fix the problem. I can't fix death. That sucks. It doesn't change the fact that I want to, though. And I can't fix the fact that someone I care about has cancer and is suffering from it. And I can't fix everything. And that's sad. Hmm. Well, life is a bit fragile. Yeah, life is a bit fragile. I can't fix the past. No, I haven't invented time travel yet. No, sadly, I've not invented time travel or a cure for death. So, maybe later, but I haven't figured that out yet. So, I also haven't figured out a cure for cancer. That's disappointing. Yeah. Springstorm says, my hubby gets very frustrated and angry with himself when he can't fix something for me. Yeah. Yeah. It's the natural, it's a very natural and male impulse. It's a very natural impulse to get frustrated and angry, disappointed when you can't fix something for someone you care about. Yeah. Anyways, I appreciate everyone who's here and spent time with me, and I appreciate everyone who was friends with Secret McSquirrel, and appreciate everyone who's helped support her, and all that good stuff. So we will be on Monday with another stream. These videos, some of these videos at least, will be cut up and shared. We got 2 videos that we'll post today, and then we'll post probably 3 videos Saturday and Sunday, and we got plenty of videos to post. So we'll see what we got, and we'll go from there. Thank you, Sandra, for saying she adored me. I adored her too. She was a good person. It's like I don't want to sign off. I don't know why. It's just like I don't want to sign off. I don't know. Maybe I'm just enjoying being on stream with you. Maybe I'm afraid that if I end the stream, you guys will disappear. Sandra, you spoke every day. I didn't know that. I'm glad too. But yeah. Fire up a game. Oh yeah, I'll definitely be playing some RimWorld for sure. Could start a new stream, play some RimWorld on stream. Been playing a new game. Maybe I'll start a new stream. You guys want to start a new stream? I'll start a new stream in 5 minutes. I got a RimWorld game that's up and running. I just need to, get some water and stuff, but I can start a new stream in 5 minutes if you guys want to hang. So for those of you who want to hang and chat some more while I play some RimWorld or something, base builder game, yeah, we'll start a new stream. So, we'll be back in about 5 minutes. So look for the announcement on Twitter or wherever, and we'll hang out a little bit more. Did I finish my chili? No, I still got a little bit left. So yeah, we'll hang out a little bit more. So yeah, give me about 5 minutes. We'll be back on stream. All right, guys. I've loved you all. I'll be back soon. I love you. Hope to see you soon. Bye bye.